Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe, presented by BetOnline. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, having spent time with the Bucks, Suns, and Knicks. And I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best hoop analysts in the business. And we're also joined by 2-time Emmy Award winner Michael Worldby Freer, who is a senior writer at Stat Factor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. This is episode number 108, the Kristaps Porzingis episode, as KP has been absolutely balling in his big return to the court through the first 2 games of the NBA Finals. We'll have more on KP later, but before we go any further, just one important reminder. BetOnline is your number one source for the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup Finals this season. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Don't forget to use our promo code BLEAV, that is BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline. The game starts here. And fellas, let's go ahead and just get started with our initial reactions to the Celtics being up 2 games in this series so far as the series shifts to Dallas. Bruce, I'll start with you. You were at game 2. Tell us about the experience and how you're feeling right now.
Well, it was a great experience. The crowd was crazy. Kyrie was concerned that it wasn't loud enough after game 1. So I think the fans perhaps wanted to give him the greeting that he felt he deserved. But yeah, I mean, look, Dallas played much better. Boston couldn't throw it in the ocean for much of the game, but it's not over. All Boston did was hold serve, right? Now Dallas gets the next 2 games at home. Now we're going to know on Wednesday night if it's over, because if it's 3-0, it's over. If it's 2-1, it's far from over. So we'll see what happens. And, just to let folks know, our plan at the moment is to do another show on Wednesday night after the game. So we'll have some instant reaction to that.
Absolutely. And World B, what are your thoughts 2 games into this year's NBA Finals?
Well, Bruce doesn't want to say it's over, and technically it's not over, but I really don't foresee the most dominating team in the league this season, the deepest team, the most all-around team, losing 4 out of the next 5 games. So this series could be extended a few games, absolutely. But, and I guess if it gets to be 2-1 or 2-2, yes, it's not over. I just don't – the way Boston is playing defensively, unless they break down somehow all of a sudden, or Jason Kidd and the Mavericks figure something out, I just don't see Boston losing 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And speaking of Game 3, I actually have the Mavericks bouncing back at home in Game 3 to make it a little bit interesting for a Game 4. I don't think they're going to win the series. I should add that. But I think Luka at home is going to be a tough one to beat. Of course, I think the league in general would hope the Mavericks can make this a few more games than just a 4-0 sweep. But I think Dallas will find their groove at home, play behind the crowd energy, and get a big victory there to make things interesting heading into Game 4. But that's it from me as far as Game 3 is concerned. Bruce, what's your prediction going into Game 3 as this series does shift to Texas?
Well, Luka, I think, is going to be a constant. He's had 30 points in both games, or 31 and 30, whatever, 32. So Luka, as I said prior to this series, I expect him to get his numbers. He's just going to have to work like crazy to get them. Kyrie, on the other hand, has not come close to his numbers in this series, and he's got to explode out of the gate on Wednesday night. I mean, if he doesn't have 10 points at the end of the first quarter, I don't know how Dallas is going to get up enough head of a steam to beat those guys. Boston won't take their foot off the gas. I think that's one lesson that they've learned. And they're 6-0 on the road during the playoffs. So they haven't lost a game on the road during the entire playoffs. So I'm not saying Dallas can't do it. I mean, if those 2 closers go for 30 each, and somebody else like a PJ Washington or one of those guys comes up with a 20, 25 piece, Dallas could take game 3. Not predicting it, but it's doable.
And World B, when it comes to Kyrie Irving, do you think he has anything left in him to kind of crack the code of Boston's Wardens, who I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute? But do you expect a response from Kyrie back on his home turf in Dallas?
Yeah, I would figure he would play better. I am told he has the best handles in the league and maybe of all time. And if you're somebody like that, and there's nothing that's really happened leading up to the finals that would disprove anything. He's had some really big moments. He's had some really exciting plays during this postseason run. A three-pointer wouldn't be out of line by him. He's 0 for 5 from three-point range in this series so far. So he's got to find his shot, but so do a lot of guys outside of Luka on Dallas has to find their shot. Yeah, the whole idea of Dallas being in the series was predicated on Luka and Kyrie doing their thing and being dominating offensively and putting the pressure on Boston that way. If only one of them is doing it, it really makes it tough to beat a team as good as Boston. So it's imperative if Dallas wants to win, Kyrie has to get going.
Yeah, and when we talk about that Boston defense, I mean, yes, as a collective effort, Boston's D from 1 through 5 has been phenomenal here thus far in the NBA Finals. But what really sets the tone for them are those Wardens and Jrue Holiday and Derrick White. And they're turning out to be quite a nightmare for Kyrie and Luka, right, Bruce?
Well, yeah. I mean, look, the Mavs as a team are only shooting 45% overall and under 25% on threes. I mean, they're not getting any corner threes, and that was sort of their bread and butter leading, up to this series. And as for Kyrie, he's averaging 14 in the first 2 games. He averaged 27 against Minnesota. He's averaging 4 dimes, which is a tick below what he averaged against Minnesota, but he's only shooting 35%. That's not 35% from 3. That's 35%. He's shooting 0% from 3. Okay. He's turning it over 2.5 times. His assist to turnover ratio is garbage. It's like 4 assists to 2.5 turnovers. He was minus 19 in game 1. He was minus 3 in game 2. So he's been the biggest disappointment, not Luka.
Hey, one thing you mentioned about the job they're doing defensively on this group on Dallas, when Jrue Holiday has been the primary defender of Kyrie Irving in this series right now, it's about 50 what they call partial possessions where he's been the guy to guard Kyrie, 50 total possessions. Kyrie has 6 points and is 2 of 8 from the field. So he's locking him down big time. Kyrie is the future Hall of Famer and all this stuff. This is his moment. He's got to figure a way out. Or Jason Kidd, whatever. They have to figure out a way to get him going. And it really, when you're Kyrie Irving, it shouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. But I think you got to give a lot of credit, certainly to those guards. I mean, they've certainly put together a defensive game plan and scheme that is really affecting the play of Kyrie. But on Luka's hand, I mean, he has had a tremendous impact here thus far. Yet the Mavericks are still falling short in these games and really never really having any sense of momentum in the first 2 games of this series so far. So kind of, Bruce, taking your Celtics bias aside here and kind of looking at the Mavericks fan perspective, what's your hope and optimism? What do you need to see change going into game 3 outside of Kyrie's play? Is there anything else that you can turn to as far as where they can kind of get a boost?
I mean, they gotta get those corner threes going because they're not really able to get anything going with those alley-oops. Boston doesn't really have to blitz anybody on defense. They switch, they guard one-on-one, they do these things. Luka has been heroic, I think. He's been, he's dragged that team as far as he can drag them on his own. But even there, I mean, and I predicted this before the series began, which is why one of the reasons I thought Boston would win. He's getting his number, but he has to work so hard for it. I mean, he had 8 turnovers in one of the games. He had 4 turnovers in the other game. So averaging 6 turnovers and, they're just coming at him in waves. I mean, he might see defender number one and he might make a move. And now there's Jaylen Brown waiting for him, or Jaylen at the point of contact. And then you have, Derrick White or Holiday waiting, or Tatum. I mean, they're just guarding him with the entire team. So honestly, unless somebody starts making some threes for those guys, I don't know how they're going to succeed.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there, Bruce. I was just going to say, there's nobody on that offensive side of the floor for Dallas that's holding the Celtics defense accountable for guarding them right now. I mean, they're able to sink in because no one's made them pay from the outside. So I would agree with your point there. As far as hope and optimistic for Dallas fans is that they can kind of find their shooting rhythm back at home. World B?
Yeah, it's not – along with shooting better, they obviously have to shoot better from the perimeter to have a shot. They're not taking shots, or they're not getting those shots. During the regular season, only Boston had a higher percentage of their field goal attempts come from three-point range than Dallas. 44% of Dallas's shots from the field came from three-point range. Boston was at 47%. In the playoffs leading up to the finals, they held true to that number. That percentage was 44%. In the first two games, 32% of their field goal attempts have come from three-point range. They got to figure out a way to get more threes to go, to get up, chuck them, for lack of a better phrase. And they have to be able to figure, it's not just shooting percentage, which obviously has to get better, but it's the ability to get those shots. And that's a credit to Boston's defense, obviously, but they have to figure it out. I'm told Jason Kidd is this offensive genius and has figured it out. Well, this is it. This is where you got to figure it out. You have to adjust, and you have to figure out a way to get those shots off. Bruce is right on the corner threes too, as well. They're not getting any, where they were number one in the league in that.
I've said all season long that the key to Boston is those two perimeter defenders, those two wardens, because what they do is they make it tough for a team to start their offense. By the time they really get a chance to kind of get flowing to where they can even look for guys, there's 8 seconds, 9 seconds, 10 seconds off the shot clock. And that makes it tough. So even if guys are moving without the ball, they might get a chance to shoot a corner three. Someone's going to be on them, but it's going to be rushed. So there's really, the disruptive perimeter defense for Boston absolutely has just made life miserable for the entire Dallas team, particularly the guards.
One more thing about that, and Bruce, you're totally on point to me when you say that, because one thing, Dallas is not, during the season, they weren't a big ball movement guy. They didn't make a ton of passes. You have Luka and Kyrie. They dominate the ball. The ball doesn't move that much. But so far in the finals, it's really been terrible. They averaged during the regular season like 250 passes a game, which is kind of down in the bottom half of the league, which isn't great when you consider somebody like San Antonio and Golden State. They're in the 300s. So that ball moves. In the finals here, it's 210 passes per game for Dallas. That's just Boston, by the way, is like 270 or something, so per game. So you can see the difference in ball movement. And there's a metric called secondary assists, which basically is any assist where somebody scores within a second or without needing a dribble. Quick passes, the alley-oops that we talked about from Dallas, those are what you would get on secondary assists. During the regular season, they averaged almost 4 of those a game, which is in the upper half of the league, whatever. They have 1 in 2 games, Dallas does, against that's to Bruce's point, the alley-oops that aren't there because of the way Boston plays defense. They have to figure a way to do that. They're completely off their game, obviously. We can just say it the way it is. Boston has taken Dallas completely out of their game offensively.
And one last note there on the late shot clock possessions for Dallas, as you look at that team, and not only do Kyrie and Luka primarily have the ball in their hands for most of the possessions throughout this season, that's by design because everybody off the ball is pretty much a one-trick pony. I mean, they're spot-up shooters or they're low-post guys that you dump off for alley-oops or quick post-up plays. You look at Boston, on the other hand, almost everyone in that starting lineup can create their own shot with 6 seconds left on a shot clock possession. Derrick White can do it. Jrue Holiday has proven he's done it. Obviously, Jaylen and Jayson speak for themselves, and if Porzingis gets it from the elbow or in, he's able to get a shot off. Dallas doesn't have that luxury. It's either Kyrie or Luka are creating plays off the dribble, or it's a spot up shot. And Boston has taken full advantage of that, recognizing that defensively.
I wonder, guys, and I know he hasn't played at all, and I think the pregame show might have spoken about it on ABC last night, although I didn't see this show. I mean, Tim Hardaway Jr. used to be a pretty good three-point shooter when he'd get some minutes. Now, I know he's not, a defender, and they need to make stops too. But, I mean, Jason Kidd's got to put him in the game and at least let him try and take a couple threes. I mean, go down doing something different than what you've done so far, because what you've done so far has led to, nothing from downtown.
And by the way, not just Tim Hardaway. Well, I can take issue whether he should be on the court because when he's on the court, he's not doing anything. So it's like if you're a shooter and you can't shoot, we're running out of things for you to do. But Ross's guy, and I agree, Jaden Hardy. Why is he not getting more time on the court? I really found it. He had a decent game in game one. A lot of it may have been in garbage time, but it was still just 10 minutes or 11 minutes. And in game two, he barely played, but less than 2 minutes or right around 2 minutes. And he'd been playing well. He's been shooting well. You're absolutely right about there being, one-trick ponies, as you were, Ross. That if you're looking for guys to come off the bench and do it, I would be looking to Jaden Hardy to get a little more time than 2 minutes a game.
I echo that thought for sure.
I knew you would.
Now at this very moment, Bruce, I'll start with you. This is the $1 million question here. Is Jrue Holiday the Finals MVP, a la Andre Iguodala from Golden State in 2015, just with the defensive presence he's had in this series?
Not only the defensive presence, the scoring, the rebounding, the passing, the getting his hands on loose balls, the 0 turnovers in 2 games. As much as the ball is in his hands, he hasn't had a single turnover in 2 games. Shooting 65% from the floor, 6 offensive rebounds in 2 games. Okay. Defense off the charts. He's averaging 19 points, 9.5 rebounds. Okay. From the backcourt, 4 assists. And as I said, no turnovers. Yes. I would say right now, I mean, you don't give the MVP after 2 games, but right now I'm definitely getting an Andre Iguodala 2015 Warriors vibe off of that guy.
Yeah. World B, you agree with that? Jrue Holiday, Finals MVP through 2 games?
If there was a 2-game thing, like there's a September Heisman in college football, we'd probably have to go to Jrue Holiday. To Bruce's point, he's tied with Jaylen Brown for in touches with 122, which is in the finals tied for the 5th most, and 122 touches and 0 turnovers. That's 76 minutes, 122 touches, 0 turnovers, and all the defense that we talked about. I mentioned with his job on Kyrie, his shooting in general. He's always been a big time performer in these moments. We knew it coming in when they made the trade. This is what they were going to get at this time of the year, and it's not a surprise. It's just you expect it out of him. It's a given almost. He's that level of player that it's a given that he's now. Nobody expects 0 turnovers, but the production he's doing right now, you're not shocked by it. This is who he is. This is how he does it, and it's more shocking to talk about other guys like why can't Jayson Tatum hit a shot? Why can't Kyrie Irving hit a shot? We have other questions. With Jrue Holiday, there's no question. This is what he does, and move on and figure it out. But clearly, nobody can figure it out. Certainly, right now, not Dallas.
No, he's been playing some great basketball on both ends, and it's just really been apparent defensively with how quiet Kyrie has been. I mean, it certainly has made him disappear, and credit to Jrue Holiday in that tremendous defense. Now, another question here. Did Jason Kidd's attempted mind game backfire on him? And Bruce, would you say that Kidd's been outcoached by Joe Mazzulla so far?
I would say, yeah. I think his attempt to drive a wedge between Tatum and Brown was clearly a desperation move, okay, because he wasn't really getting anything else done, so he was trying to find a way to sow some discord. That was a panic move, okay. I thought Mazzulla totally outcoached him in game 2. I mean, the Mavs were leading 13-6, 5 minutes into the game, right? And then Kidd challenged a foul call that he thought was a foul, that I think Derrick White committed, and it wasn't called a foul. So he lost the challenge. Okay.
Yeah.
4 minutes and 49 seconds actually into the game. He lost his challenge for the rest of the game. Okay. He was hoping to push that lead up to 9 or 10. Again, that was a desperation move in my mind because he's thinking, I got to go for it now, like 4.5 minutes into the game, as opposed to maybe having that challenge available at the tail end when PJ Washington probably got fouled in the last 30 seconds when, Jaylen Brown gave him a little push in the back and then White blocked his shot, on that, which could have made it a 1-possession game. If he'd have had that challenge, I think that had a very good chance of being overturned. So, yes, Joe Mazzulla has absolutely outcoached Jason Kidd so far.
Yeah, we'll be want to give you a chance to sound off on that, as you had texted us during that stretch of the ball game there on the PJ Washington call. Do you want to share your thoughts on that?
Oh, I mean, Bruce is right as far as, we should have that challenge later in the game. I don't know if it was a panic move on his part necessarily. He was listening to I believe it was PJ that asked for that, if I remember it right, was asking for the review on that foul call they made on Derrick White or whatever. I think his assistants told him to challenge it, whatever, and they blew it there. At the end of the game, I texted you guys, it's inexcusable to not call that foul at that moment. It's not, as social media likes to do, it's not rigged. This series is not rigged in anybody's favor. Why would NBA want to do that all of a sudden? They want to extend this darn thing. They should call every touch foul down the stretch in Dallas's favor. But he got pushed in the back, and he got, by the way, whoever blocked the shot hit his hand first. So, right. So he actually got fouled twice, and we're all concentrated on the foul on his hand when he tried to block the shot, and he got the hand and not the ball. And then you find out later, you look at it, he got pushed in the back along it. It's inexcusable that foul was not called. I personally, my opinion, I think a lot of the speed of the game has passed a lot of officials by. I don't think they can keep up with it. I really believe that. It's no fault of theirs. I don't think there's any sinister or anything like that. I think a lot of guys just cannot keep up with the athleticism and the speed of the game at this point. That being said, to Bruce's point, I don't know if in-game Jason Kidd necessarily being out-coached. He's not doing anything to actually do it, win these games, coach these teams to victory. I think the preparation, the execution, clearly Mazzulla has had his team much better prepared, and they've executed way better than Dallas has. On that front, Joe Mazzulla gets a major check mark over Jason Kidd. On the other hand, in Jason Kidd's defense, I got Dallas shooting 23% from three-point range when the defender is 4 feet or more away. So basically wide open shots. They're hitting 23% of those. That can't happen. It was 37% in the playoffs. I have Dallas doing the job defensively against Boston's the most efficient offense in the history of this league, and they're not really knocking the socks off offensively. The storyline for them is defensively. So Dallas gets credit for doing the job on defense there to some extent. But it's, Kyrie and Luka are getting outplayed when they're on the court together. Jason Kidd's not doing a great job, but it's not all on him. His players got to do something here. Now, I agree with Bruce. It's got to fall on Jason Kidd to adjust before Wednesday's game 3 and figure out a plan to get his guys some points, or this is over.
Now, being that this is our first show since the finals began, we're obviously 2 games in. I'm very curious on this question for you both. And Bruce, I'll start with you being our Celtics fan here. I wanted to check your pulse on Kristaps Porzingis' play. So on a scale 1 to 10, 1 being not surprised at all, 10 being extremely surprised, how surprised are you with how he's performed thus far?
So you're saying if I'm
One's not surprised at all.
Bruce didn't realize there'd be math today, so that's not fair now. Bruce didn't know there'd be math on the show.
I know. Well, at least you didn't go beyond the number 10, so I can count on my hands. I would say probably 3.5 because, because I'm not super surprised, but I'm not like, astonished or anything. I mean, look, we forgot how good he could be during this hiatus. We didn't, this team won 64 games this year. He was a huge reason why. I mean, he was pretty much their third leading. I mean, he was averaging 20 a game all season. So we knew that he was good. We knew that he, they used him and attack switches with him. He can shoot over literally any player in the league, not named Victor Wembanyama, I suppose. And in the series, he's playing 22 minutes, 16 points, 5 rebounds, 2.5 blocks, shooting 60% from the floor. He doesn't have to play big minutes. So he's able to give it all he's got while he's out there. And, when he's tired, he has to come out. And then, you have, the other, Al Horford, who comes in and plays a different style, a little bit more defense. But look, I'm not super surprised. I would say I'm slightly surprised, only because of the layoff.
All right. World B?
I'm not terribly. I give it even a better score for him, a 2. It's not a surprise. Bruce's point is dead on. His nickname is the unicorn for a reason. I mean, it cringes. I cringe every time I see him take a shot because it just reminds me what it could have been with the Knicks if he had, if they had kept him and all this stuff. But he's a matchup nightmare when he's on his game. And game 1 performance, it's not a 1 for me because he while you're not surprised he can do this stuff, his performance in game 1 was really special. He was the story for me in game 1. He just couldn't miss. He, as Bruce said, he can shoot over anybody. You can give him the ball at any point. He is the perfect guy in this system you got 5 guys who can get in the basket, 5 guys who can shoot from 3-point range here. And he's a big difference. Think about this. And you guys know this. If Boston shuts down Kyrie, if they shut down Luka, the next guy, for Dallas is PJ Washington.
Yeah.
If you shut down Jayson Tatum, if you shut down Jaylen Brown, the number 3 guy option, whatever you want to call it, is Porzingis. If you somehow shut him down, then the next guy up is Jrue Holiday. If you somehow shut him down, the next guy is Derrick White. I mean, they have the players. They have the players. It's just a ridiculous, advantage for Boston. It's a major advantage for Boston, and having Porzingis on the court doing what he's doing is just a major advantage for Boston in this series, and we're seeing it so far through 2 games.
Yeah, I'd put my surprise about a 7. I think a lot of why I am so surprised is just the fact that he was dealing with a lot of the same ailments that Giannis had with his own injury that made it to where he couldn't participate in their first-round matchup against the Pacers. So given kind of Porzingis' injury history, being that he is 7'3", similar size to Giannis, I was not expecting this, and I would be safe to go out on a limb and say I think Dallas is quite surprised at how well he's playing too. And they're a team that, used to employ him. So I feel like they would have a pretty good read on, what to expect with Porzingis. But I think they've been kind of taken back with how effective he's been on both ends. Now, along those same lines with the embarrassment of riches, Bruce, I want to talk about your boy, Jayson Tatum. Would you say at this point in the series, is he becoming undervalued because his scoring numbers are down?
I think so. I mean, look, and this is one of the things about like people who just their primary reason for following sports is fantasy league stuff. Fantasy league players look at box scores. They don't really look at the game because if they looked at the game, they probably wouldn't care so much about fantasy stats. But his scoring, I mean, he averaged 27 during the regular season. In this series, he's averaging 17, okay? He hasn't shot it well, but he's kind of recognizing the fact that he's not shooting it well. one of the reasons he's not shooting it well is because they're double teaming him a lot. So he's attacking the double teams. He's making great passes. He had a couple of little pocket passes on Sunday night that were just brilliant assists. Okay. He's hitting the boards, 10.5 rebounds, 8.5 assists. Okay. He's averaging, 1.5 assists less than a triple double, in this series. Okay. He's playing 44 minutes. Okay. So he's out there pretty much the entire game, making good decisions, making hockey assists, really kind of controlling. He's almost like the point forward on that team at this point, and that he's controlling the pace and he's the center of the action. He's making a lot of things happen. So yes, the people who look at him and say, whoa, his scoring's down. These people are probably, I wouldn't call them very sophisticated watchers of the game, because if they were more attuned to like, what do you have to do to win? They would recognize some of the things that he's doing. They're 14-2 in the postseason, and he's been a disappointment. I don't think so.
Yeah. Will be anything to add on that?
Yeah, I would take the other side slightly to what Bruce says. I don't mind the defense of Jayson Tatum. All the numbers that Bruce mentions are absolutely correct. The only thing I would say is when we're talking about Jayson Tatum, we're talking about a player who's we're told is on a different level. He's on the level of Luka. He's on the level of Steph Curry. He's one of those players. I'm told that. And that's fine, but you got to shoot better. If you want to be one of those, we're not mentioning him as the MVP of the finals or whatever. And I'm not saying that validates your stature in the league if you win finals MVP. That's kind of silly. But if you want to be labeled among one of the elite players in the league, a top 5, a top 10, then you can't shoot the way he's shooting and get away with that. Is he still a dominating or a very good player? Yeah, the numbers bear it out. The assists, the rebounds, the defense in general. He is still about 20, not in this series, but he had been a 20-point per game, 24-point guy in the postseason. All true. But we can't deny he's having a miserable time with his shot. He's being fortunate to play on this great team that has a bunch of guys to bail him out. That's great. We all knew that was going to happen. You can't stop everybody. So the only thing I would say is it's fine if you want to come to the defense of Jayson Tatum. There's a lot of reason to do that. I would say that's fine, but don't tell me he's one of the top 5, top 8 players in this league when you're performing like this on the biggest stage.
And when it comes to Boston's dynamic duo of Jaylen and Jayson, Bruce, you had teased World B and I with a good analogy for their chemistry. So I was hoping you would give us the privilege here to elaborate more on that.
Well, I look at those two guys as almost kind of a fire and ice sort of a duo, okay? I mean, JT, when you watch him play, his facial expression tends to be, you don't see him growling and you don't see him like scowling. I mean, the only time he crunches up his nose is when he doesn't get a whistle. But, for the most part, he's kind of got a placid expression on his face, kind of going about his business, almost like he's on a business trip. Whereas with Brown, I mean, you can just see the intensity. It just burns in that guy. The way he plays, when he goes up for a dunk, he wants to rip the goddamn rim off the basket. I mean, he is fierce out there. I would not call Jayson Tatum fierce. I would call Jaylen Brown fierce. Thus, he's got the fire, and Tatum, based on his facial expressions, is more the ice.
And World B, when it comes to the fire and Jaylen Brown this season, of course, notwithstanding his play here in the finals as well, he's been tremendous. How big of a season has this been on his overall reputation for fans across the league? I mean, he sure seems like he's living up to that max contract.
Absolutely. I won't say the pressure was on him because of that contract to live up to it. And really, if you look at it, he didn't make an All-NBA team, which we can all debate that. And there's certainly a strong case could be made for his inclusion on one of these teams. And so, yeah, there's nothing that's happened during this postseason and this season that has diminished his reputation, his stature in this league, his standing, his reputation, where he is in this league. He is one of the elite players. Is he a top 5 player? No, he's not a top 5 player. Top 10? Probably not. You could probably mention 10 player, but you don't go much further down than that before you get to a Jaylen Brown. And so far in this playoffs, he is absolutely doing the job in that regard.
Now he's been very efficient too. I'm sorry, Ross. He's shooting 55% from the floor. So as poorly as Tatum has shot, Jaylen Brown has been super efficient. And again, his defense has been great as well.
Well, sorry I jumped the gun there, Bruce. I'm just getting excited here. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I've got 2 big topics around basketball, not related to the finals, that I want to ask you here before we close out the show. And we're back. Let's go ahead and get to our final thoughts on 2 big hot topics around the game of basketball. And we're going to start out in the WNBA with Caitlin Clark. And the most recent Caitlin Clark news is the fact that she was left off Team USA for the upcoming Olympics in France this year. And World B, I'm going to start with you on this one. What was your reaction seeing the news that the star rookie in the WNBA did not get any shine for Team USA?
I wasn't terribly surprised about it because in my head, I'm thinking about it. I'm going, well, to me, there's 2 separate issues here, and then we'll talk about it, whatever. It's, does she deserve to be on there on merit as one of the 12 best American players? And does she deserve to be on there in an effort to grow the sport of women's basketball? I think they're 2 separate issues. And in one, yeah, she deserves to be on it, or she should be on it. Not deserves. She should be on it. And the other one, is she one of the 12 best players? No, I don't think she is. At this point, it could change in a year. It could change, who knows, from year 1 to year 2. Would her inclusion on the team help raise the stature, the eyeballs coming to the event? I think it's not as one-sided as people tend to believe this weekend. We can get into that in a minute, but I don't think it's a given that it automatically would.
Bruce?
The USA women are going to win the gold medal with or without her, okay? They do not need Caitlin Clark to win the gold medal. So they're making her wait her turn, okay? Air quotes there, which might seem petty to some people, but to other people it might be like, you know what? She's got so much so quickly. Maybe, tap the brakes on Caitlin Clark, the savior of the women's game, for a minute, because they're going to win the gold easily, whether she's there or not. To me, the interesting aspect of this is a test for her. And how is she going to handle it? Is she going to pull the diva act and act like, oh, poor me, they left me off the team? Or is she going to do what I think she has done, which is basically taking it in stride, saying all the right things, kind of knowing her place as a rookie, okay, even though a high-profile rookie and one that everybody is interested in. I don't know how she really feels deep inside, but the way she's conducting herself to me is a very mature way of looking at it. I would say the people who are going to be most disappointed about this are going to be the executives at NBC who televises the Olympics, because the TV ratings for women's basketball games in the Olympics are not going to be all that great. And if Caitlin Clark were playing, they would be considerably better. So NBC is the big loser in this deal, more so than Caitlin.
Yeah, I think for Caitlin, this is going to be something that helps transcend her career. I think she's really going to play with a chip on her shoulder, keep this as motivation moving forward to really earn her stripes, and use this to continue working hard. And I think she's going to continue to handle this professionally. So, my biggest thing with her being left off is maybe the fear of how big of a distraction she might have been to the rest of the team. Not to say she would have been one personally, but the media certainly would have made her one. And I don't think they wanted to really, test that out here with the Olympics right around the corner. And given the fact that even with the group that Team USA did put together on the women's side, I mean, who knows how much she would have played. So would it have mattered to keep her on the end of the bench to be a potential distraction and really kind of mess up the chemistry of the team. I think this was a wise choice.
I'll tell you that is exactly where I was going with this whole should she be on there or not. And the reason is, if she didn't get the playing time, remember Christian Laettner on the Dream Team in '92 was on the team, didn't play a whole lot, or probably played the fewest minutes of anybody. And that was a different story because he wasn't the main story, whatever. But then it becomes, why didn't she play more? Should she play more? And how many eyeballs, after you get about 3 or 4 games in and it becomes apparent that she's not going to see a lot of time, how many of those eyeballs that are initially going to be watching more of the women's game because she's on the team, how many more are going to keep watching if she's going to be sitting on the bench? So I questioned exactly how much, she would improve ratings in the overall. Maybe she would. I would certainly like to see her on the court playing and doing her thing because we all like her as a player. She's outstanding. I just don't know if it's going to have as big of an impact as we think having her on the team.
Yep, absolutely. And the second order of business here, Bruce, I'll start with you on this one. Dan Hurley, the head coach of UConn, he kind of became out of nowhere as the top candidate for the Lakers last week, and was told the media and I think even his UConn team that he was going to make a decision by Monday as of taping here. And of course, he rejected the Lakers' $70 million offer to become the next head coach of the storied franchise. So what are your initial thoughts on that? Were you surprised to see that his name all of a sudden popped up as the Lakers' next coach? And then how do you feel about the fact that he decided to turn it down?
Well, first of all, I live in the state of Connecticut, and they're going to throw a ticker tape parade for the guy because everyone in this state had their fingers crossed that he would stay loyal to UConn. But what a slap in the face to the Lakers organization. Ouch. They're offering a guy, a college coach, $11+ million a year to drive their Rolls Royce, to coach the GOAT, to coach Anthony Davis, to, Showtime, the whole thing. And he says, I think I'll hang out at the ice cream stand up in Stores, Connecticut, because to me, that's a better job than your job. Okay. That to me is such a slap in the face to the Lakers, this organization that sees themselves as, the top franchise in the NBA. I mean, and then to be dissed by a college coach at UConn of all places. All right. I guess Dan Hurley would rather coach Alex Caravan than LeBron James. I mean, Alex might be more coachable. Alex, is their top player returning. Okay. He's got 2 chips and he'll be back for his 3rd year. So, and oh, by the way, when it turns out that we found out what the actual offer was, it sounded like a lot less money than what was originally kind of floated out there. They're going to make this guy. I mean, and then it was like, oh, he would have been the 6th highest paid coach. He probably got wind of that and thought to himself, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. So good luck to JJ Redick and good luck to ABC, ESPN replacing him in the booth.
World B, what were your thoughts on the Dan Hurley thoughts of hiring by the Lakers and then the declination?
The fact that he considered it, 2 things. One, I think he is one of those guys that likes the challenge of coaching in the NBA. And I think UConn wins. I think the NBA loses because I think he would have been I think he could have been, and maybe down the road will be a success coaching in the NBA. I think he's got the right personality. He comes off as a fiery guy, but I don't think that would alienate the right team. He gets the right team together. I think he would have his team's back, and I think he's a really, really good coach, obviously. I think it said a lot about the state of college basketball, too, that they're getting down the road of it's not college anymore. It's just basketball at the collegiate level or whatever. It's becoming a much different game. And I think he's probably looked at that going, how much worse is it going to get for college basketball? And maybe somebody's going to offer me $11 million a year and it's the Laker franchise. I have to think about it. Bruce is exactly right. This is a slap in the face. This is a slap in the face to the Laker organization and the ownership and the front office. I think he dodged a bullet here. Now, turning $70 million down isn't exactly dodging the all-time bullet. I get that. But I don't know if you want to be mixed up with Rob Pelinka as your GM. I just don't think, you only going to have LeBron for 2 more years. Now he's looking at, all right, what's after that? What's those next 4 years of my contract after those guys go? What kind of team am I going to have? How much input are you going to let me have? A lot of questions there, and I don't know what we'll never know, or we won't know anytime soon what that was all about. I think he dodged a bullet with the Lakers franchise. I think if it was something like the Celtics franchise or picking up the Sixers or somebody like that, yeah, I could see him pulling a stunt like that because their ownership is a lot different than what they have out in LA right now. But it really would have it really would have been a win for the Lakers to have somebody like that on board. And now it's back to, now you're talking, as Bruce mentioned, J.J. Redick, James Borrego, who I think would be great for the job, by the way, before J.J. Redick, but that's another issue. It was a fun little thing while it lasted, but college basketball wins in the end.
Borrego needs to do a podcast with Anthony Davis so that, maybe he'd have a chance at that.
Exactly. Yeah. I think what's going to ultimately end up happening is J.J. Redick's going to be head coach, and I think they're going to pay James Borrego to be the highest paid lead assistant now that Kevin Young, who was last year's top paid lead assistant, left for BYU. So I think they got to get an experienced head coach in to be the lead assistant on a Redick-led staff.
Here's a question. Did J.J. Redick's offer get increased now that did his price tag get a little bit bigger now that they just, the numbers are out for Danny Hurley and he said no, and then he's the next guy in line? Did he suddenly get a few more million on his paycheck for this? I'm actually really curious.
Well, I thought J.J. Redick was going to stay quiet until the finals were over. He kind of hinted at that on one of his recent media appearances, was the fact when asked about that, I think he said that he was going to respect the NBA finals and the job that he had and, see where things led him after his obligations with ESPN were completed at the end of the finals. So should be interesting to see if they wait to make any announcement or moves with the job until the finals is over. I would suspect that's what they're going to do at this point, since Redick is a serious candidate for this. But as far as the contract's concerned, that is very interesting. Any final thoughts here before we close down the show, fellas?
Has anyone watched the series Clipped on Hulu about Donald Sterling and the LA Clippers?
No,
I have not, but I've heard some thoughts. Yeah.
J.J. Redick is prominently featured in there, the actor playing J.J. Redick. So I've watched the first 2 episodes. Pretty amusing. Ed O'Neill plays Donald Sterling, formerly played Al Bundy on Married with Children, and the guy on Modern Family that was Sofia Vergara's husband. So far, so good. I like it.
All right, I'll definitely have to check it out. But for now, that will do it for this edition of the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe, presented by BetOnline. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with you on Wednesday night after Game 3 to be sure you're up to date in 48 on all things around the NBA Finals. Take care, everybody.